you now about how to set up a Google Tag Manager account and to set your container, which you can then use on your website. So it's a very simple procedure. What I'm looking at is digital platform .press, and you then have a choice of what type of container you want to use. If you're using a WordPress website or just a general website, then you're going to select web. If for some reason you are implementing your Google Tag Manager on accelerated mobile pages, so AMP, which digital platform .press is planning to offer in the near future, you would use the AMP version instead. Alternatively, if you have a native app for Android or iOS, you can actually use those versions as well. But for websites, you generally want to use the web version as well. So once you've done that, you're just going to click on Create, and it's going to start working through it for you. First of all, you have a Google Tag Manager terms of service, which you have to read through. Obviously relating to GDPR and how you may or may not use it as well. If you are happy with those conditions, you need to click that you accept the data processing things under the GDPR policy, and then click the button at the top right hand corner that says yes. So we've clicked that and it's running. And you can see now at the bottom left hand corner it's saying that it's loading, and then we come to the actual main tag manager thing. You've got two options here in terms of how you can set this up. It gives you some codes which you want to insert into your website, and there are a number of ways of doing this. If you are running your own WordPress website and you have access to the theme code, you want to copy and paste the code into the head of your document, of your theme page, and then put this bit into the body tag as well on OK. The next thing we are going to do then is we are going to set up our tags, and how we are going to use them. And again, it's quite a simple thing. The container is set up for our main tag manager, and it works kind of like a kind of Git system, so you can kind of create new versions of it as you add new tags in. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go into the tags here, and you have a number of choices that you can use. So you want to create a new tag, so we click the new button. First of all, you have to give the tag the name. This is for your purposes, so you know which ones you're doing. This is an example we're going to use a Google Analytics tag, so we're just going to say Google Analytics, and again, this is for your record, so you know which tags are firing where. Next thing we're going to go to is click Tag Configuration, and we are going to use the Google Analytics Universal Analytics section tag, which is automatically set up, and we want this to trigger a page view action for Google Analytics when somebody comes onto our website. We need to put the Google Analytics setting in there, and to do this we're going to click on New Variable, and it's going to take us to this screen here. Now when you're setting up Google Analytics, you will actually have a tracking ID for your Google Analytics account. You want to copy and paste this into this section here. We're just going to use the random key for now, because we don't want to give anything away on the internet, which people can use or abuse. So I'm just going to type in here random key. You are going to copy and paste your Google Analytics tracking code ID into here, which you can get from your Google Analytics account. And just so I can make sure I know what I'm looking at later on, I'm just going to name this variable Google Analytics tracking ID. Okay, and there's a reason for this later on. Okay, we're going to hit save, and we're going to come back to it. Okay, it's going to ask us to be in this form here. So this is the Google Analytics form. So we're just going to change this from random key to this. So then this should fire. Click on this submit button up here. I'm going to put just a very descriptive name in here, Google Analytics added. So again, this is just for your records, so you know what is happening and when it's happening and what changes have been made and why. Google Tag Manager is a great way for multiple users in your business to be able to make changes to your tracking codes, to your pixels, to inserting scripts into your website without actually having to go in and edit code, which is a massive thing. And again, with this version control on it, you can always revert back as well. I'm just going to put a very brief description of what I've done here. So I set up a Google Analytics ID variable, set up Google Analytics page view action to fire on all pages. Done. There we go. So we're now going to publish that, and then that will be live. So if I am using a browser to test this, what I will probably want to do when I visit my website to check that this is working or not is actually do a hard refresh. So it pulls in the fresh JavaScript from the tag manager, as opposed to using the cached one. Chrome particularly has a habit of caching JavaScript, so it doesn't have to reload it again. That's quite useful for adding chat scripts or things that benefit your page but don't necessarily provide tracking, which is quite good. Now I've got it on a page view. All I can do here is I can change this to some page view, and I want this to trigger when the page URL is equal to it contains or is equal to a certain thing. So I could say it's equal to when the URL contains shop, checkout, thank you. And again, if you're using something like WooCommerce where it has a specific thank you page, that's a good place to put it. That's not live yet. Let's just put some text in here. Normally it's going to be a script of some description. It's an empty tag for the time being. That can be any form of HTML that you need. And again, just want to make sure our firing triggers are there. You can see it hadn't come up properly. Yeah, it's triggering on the thank you page there. Yeah, that's, again, just check it all through just to make sure that it is all as it should be. So again, if I want to submit this, I just click submit. I'm just going to add Facebook pixel added to WooCommerce. Thank you. Okay, I'm just going to set this detail here what I've done. So set up a trigger for WooCommerce thank you page. And added to fire on page. Okay, so when I click publish now, that will go live, and I then should be able to see when my page reloads. Again, there's my versions. I can see I've got now 2 tags firing, 1 trigger, 1 variable. So again, we just need to go back into here. Let's look at our triggers. We have WooCommerce thank you page. Let's look at our tags. Yeah, we can see Facebook pixels firing for WooCommerce thank you pages are done. One quite useful feature you can add here as well is if you are wanting to track clicks on certain links, adding a trigger. And I'm just going to put it in here, clicked. Okay, and I'm just going to say with hash. Actually, just saying that anchor link clicked. We'll do that there. Okay, and when I go to my configuration there, I can go to just links. Okay, and I can then say I only want some links, and when the I want to choose the built-in variables, which it has, so I can actually record what link has been clicked on. So I'm going to click the click URL, and that is going to pull off the URL for the anchor link that I've done. And normally when I click on an anchor link, it's a hash with an ID of the element that we're scrolling to or moving to. So I'm just going to put in here just the hash. So if that link contains a hash, it will fire. Okay, so that's our trigger sorted. So we've saved that. What I now want to do is create a tag to fire at that point. So what I want to do on this, go to tag, and I'm going to create a Google Analytics event. This is quite, again, useful for tracking certain user actions that happen on your website. So I'm going to go to new, and I'm just going to call my tag here, user on, and it's the hash element of the URL is called a fragment link. Okay, so I'm going to click on here, and I'm going to go to my Google Analytics. And again, I don't want to track a page view. What I'm tracking here is an event that happens. And I'm going to give it a different category. Okay, so my category here is anchor link. Action is can be whatever you want. So it may be, for example, an anchor link is clicked. It might be an internal scroll link. And the label you can use here, and you can do any combinations, whatever you want to test this with your Google Analytics dashboard using real-time kind of data coming in so you can see how your events are firing. The label here, actually, I could call it as a name, or I can actually do things like taking the click URL, for example. So if I click on here to pull in the kind of things we've already got, a data layer, which is being passed through. So I'm just going to click on the URL. Google Analytics will record what page it happened on anyway. And just click the save. I just want to remind me I hadn't added a trigger. So the trigger that I'm going to add on this is the anchor link clicked, and that now will just tell me which anchor link has been clicked on there as well. I can do some quite clever stuff with this as well. I need to make sure I've got my Google tracking ID set as well. So I'm actually just going to set a new variable now because I don't necessarily want the full page for the label. And so I can set my own variables. So with this, I'm going to go to variables here, and I can set my variables up. So you can see I've got my Google Analytics tracking ID variable in there. I'm going to click new. And what I want to do is actually go URL fragments, just give it a name. So I want in that hash link from the URL that I put in. Quite useful if you've got kind of, say, scrolling pages, or even if you're doing one-page apps or websites. So the variable I'm going to get from here is I'm going to get the URL. Okay, now I don't want the full URL. I want the fragment of the URL, and I want to actually look at more settings here. By default, it is going to take the URL with a fragment of the page that's been being viewed. I don't want that. I want it to be from the click URL. So whichever URL is clicked, whichever link is clicked, I want to take the fragment from that link. And remember, this is only firing when there is a fragment present. And then I'm going to click save. Okay. So your select options, that's done. So I have my new variable called URL fragment. If I go back to my tag now, instead of passing through the whole URL, so in this place it could be digitalplatform.press/shop hash purchase or hash sign up or anything like that, the idea, the element that you're wanting to direct people to, if you've got that element on every single page, you just really want the hashtag element, otherwise it's a great big long string which is hard to read. So on this, I'm just going to actually change the click URL. I'm going to change that into my variable that I've made, which is URL fragment. So which is taking the URL from the item that was clicked, so the href on an A tag. It looks at the URL, it takes a fragment off, and it's passing that fragment as a string to Google Analytics to help me with my data. So I'm going to hit save. Okay, let that all do. And you can see I've got 4 workspace changes that I've made here. So again, I want to provide good documentation every time. So what I've done here is adding on-page anchor link click event for Google Analytics. So I'm going to say here, set up tag to pass event to Google Analytics, set a variable to pull the fragment from the href of the link that was clicked. And again, it's just for your records, and so if there's anybody else working on the account, they can understand what this update is for as well. And then I set up to fire when a link which is for an anchor is clicked. Now again, bearing in mind that if you are actually including an anchor link for a different site, this will fire at the same time as well. Just be very wary about that. You might need to change the rules slightly. So I'm going to publish that, and I've just given you 3 very quick examples of how you can add a Facebook pixel, how you can add general Google Analytics page view triggers, but also how you can actually add Facebook events into it as well. You can also use Google Tag Manager to fire when forms are submitted if you give a form ID or form class, which again, it can be quite useful, especially if you've got widgets on every page of a WordPress site.